lawmakers that first discovered those so-called side deals. Member of the Armed Services Committee, Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Good to have you on the show.
Good morning, Mika.
Joe.
Yeah, Tom, thank you so much for being with us. Obviously, we interviewed the Admiral yesterday morning from the State Department. The state wasn't ready to admit this. Later in the day, he did, clarified some comments, as well as Susan Rice. Are you satisfied with the answer that you've gotten from the administration on these side deals?
No, Joe, I'm not. I traveled to Vienna last week to meet with the IAEA specifically to discuss this issue of side deals, and they were very frank and helpful in saying they've reached 2 secret side agreements with Iran about the Parchin military complex while Iran was testing nuclear detonators, and how they're going to verify the past military work that Iran has done in their nuclear program. So the State Department has confirmed now, finally, that those agreements do in fact exist, but they have not told us the contents of those agreements. So unless Congress gets the contents of these agreements and knows, for example, how the IAEA plans to inspect the Parchin military site, I don't see how any member of Congress could vote for this deal, because it's based on verification and inspection. And without that information, I don't see how we can trust the government of Iran.
Senator Cotton, it's Willie Geist. I'm wondering how and why these side deals would have been made in the context of this long international negotiation where you had the P5+1 sitting down, led by the United States. How could there then be another negotiation going on the side? And if it was, why didn't we stop it, or did we even know about it?
Well, that's a very good question, Willie. These are 2 of the most important questions in these negotiations. Iran's had almost 4 years to reveal the past military work that they've done in their nuclear program. And again, the Parchin military site is where they've tested detonators for nuclear weapons. Now, this may have been a firm line that Iran would not draw, and the United States negotiating team simply was refusing to draw their own line or to walk away from the deal. So John Kerry acted like Pontius Pilate. He washed his hands, kicked it to the IAEA, knowing that Congress would not get this information unless someone went out to find it.
Tom, good morning. Harold Ford. I know that Secretary Kerry, I believe, is expected to come before one of the relevant committees in the Senate today. 2 questions. One, do you believe these questions will be asked directly of him? And 2, what traction are you getting with this with Democrats? We've read in some reports that there are Democrats who are skeptical of this, and even some who've urged Secretary Kerry to be more respectful of some of the Democratic skepticism.
Yeah, Harold, we discussed this yesterday in a closed setting, as did the House, with my colleague Mike Pompeo, a congressman who traveled with me to Vienna. In both those closed settings, Secretary Kerry did confirm the existence of these agreements, but he wouldn't disclose the contents. So I expect you'll see more public testimony today. I know many Democrats are very concerned about the process the administration has taken over the last week, first going to the United Nations Security Council before they came to the American people, and now not disclosing first the existence and now the content of these agreements. And many Democrats are very concerned, not just on the process grounds, but about what those contents may say and about what the administration conceded in terms of disclosure of Iran's past military dimensions of its nuclear program and inspections at the Parchin military site.
So, Senator, what would you expect to happen today if, after a closed session with Secretary Kerry, he does not outline what is in this agreement this with the IAEA? What's the next step?
Well, under federal law, as passed by Congress earlier this year, the administration has 60 days in which they can't waive sanctions until they submit all agreements. That includes any agreement between Iran and the IAEA. So my position would be the president cannot waive sanctions until he submits these agreements, and there's a 60-day clock that begins to run. Again, the status of the agreement between the IAEA and Iran doesn't matter so much for U.S. law, because the administration has an obligation under U.S. law to obtain these agreements and to submit them to Congress so we can review them on behalf of the American people.
Joe.
I suspect you'll hear from the State Department. I suspect John Kerry would say that the IAEA has to make side deals with Iran on how they're going to actually carry out logistically the overall agreement that was made between Iran and the United States and the P5. If it's just administrative and it doesn't circumvent the larger deal, what's the problem with this sort of deal?
Well, that's the point, is that these agreements are not administrative. It goes to the heart of the inspection and the verification regime. Parching is where Iran tested nuclear detonators. We don't know what else they've done there. If you don't have the past military work they've done in their nuclear program, you have no baseline for inspections. It's like saying you're going to go on a diet, but you don't have the weight where you start, and you don't know what kind of progress you've made.
But Senator, these side deals, they can't undercut the overall deal that all sides agreed to, can they?
We don't know that because the contents are secret. For all we know, they would in fact undercut the agreement, because if you don't have that baseline, you can't conduct an effective inspections regime, no matter what the inspections regime is.
All right, Senator Tom Cotton, thank you very much for being on the show this morning. We'll be following this, and coming up, we're going to get the Democratic point.